Good evening, ladies. My name is Ruby, and tonight I want to bring to you a message from Esther on the title of For Such a Time as This. And ladies, I want you to know, starting off, I have everything I need to make this go great. You know, Esther, who is she? She was a young Jewish girl who was raised by her cousin Mordecai. And in a time when the king was looking for another wife after he banished Vashti, she was one of the ones that was taken to become a part of a huge beauty pageant to figure out who would be the one to win the prize, to become queen. You know, when you think of Esther, she had no real royal line, a lineage. Unless you want to consider that Mordecai was in the line of Benjamin, where Kish was also in the line of Benjamin, and Kish is the father to King Saul, who was king of Israel. But we don't know if those lines really reached out to Esther. All I know is that she was chosen, and that makes it a fairy tale kind of rags to riches story. But after being chosen, she was also given beauty treatments. Can you imagine a year of being pampered and prodded and massaged and made up to become something that you weren't? You know, this is the stuff that reality TV is made of. The 1 in a million shot to win the final prize. It's a competition. You know, when I think of Esther, what she did was she heeded the advice of those that were teaching her. And as a result of that, she gained the favor of everyone around her. Haggai, the eunuch who was her teacher of all things royal and how to become royal, said that she won him over because she did everything he told her to do. She also was very obedient to her cousin Mordecai in being raised by him. So that was already a part of her character. And as a result, she was the finalist. Well, what did she really need in all of this? Was it the beauty and all the treatments? No, I dare say all she needed was faith. Her faith, and God would do the rest. It reminds me of Matthew 6, where Jesus calls the disciples to him and sends them out to go and perform miracles in his name. And he tells them, take nothing for the journey. And I say to myself, can you imagine if this was a group of women and Jesus is sending them out? And he says, only take a staff? Well, okay, Jesus, as long as I can bring my tote bag, my handbag, and my fanny pack, we might be able to get on the road. Esther had a secret. And her secret was, and Mordecai had asked her not to reveal it, but that she was a daughter of God. She grew up with the law, and she knew the law. And so Esther could do, but when you think about it, Esther could do nothing to position herself to be queen. But God wanted her in that position. And so all of this was God's plan. But now, for the first time, there was a woman of faith in God Almighty in the royal palace for such a time as this. In contrast, outside, there was doom, a pending doom hanging over all the Jewish people because Haman had tricked the king into sending out an edict that would destroy and annihilate her people. But she was unaware. You know, this reminds me of our current plight. I'm in my home. I sit in my home while this pandemic is going around all around us, and people are dying. It is serious. It is real. But I feel like it has lulled me into a position of being indifferent. As I sit at home with all my disinfectants and my hand sanitizers and my masks and my gloves and even my toilet paper, I feel like I've become indifferent to the spiritual condition of the people outside. It is the urgency that woke Esther up. The urgency that she needed because she had become indifferent to her people. And I feel like it was the kick she needed because she had become a part of the royal establishment, well fed. Everything was done for her. Today, women, it's April 1st. And I feel like God has placed us in our community right now for such a time as this, to reach out to our community, our family, our friends, through prayer. It's a time for prayer, and it's also a time for action. We all need to take a page from Esther's story. Yes, we are comforted by our faith in Jesus. And we're encouraged that the plague, to most of us, is outside the door. But the defining moment for Esther is the same defining moment for us. Esther needed to beseech God, to go to God on behalf of the people. And she understood that to approach the king, she was risking her life. She had a plan. Not only did she commit to fasting and praying, but she also got the harem of women around her to fast and pray. I doubt they even had this belief in her God, but she had them fasting and praying. And then she asked Mordecai to get the people outside of the royal palace to fast and pray. And she said, I am now resolved. I will go to the king. And if I die, I die. Imagine getting to that place. You can only get to that place with a faith in your God that understands eternity. But even if that were the case, her death would not be in vain. Because if she was fulfilling God's will for her life, then that is what she was born for. Esther got to a place of surrender. And I think that is where I need to be today. And I feel like that's probably true for all of us. Psalm 62, 5 and 6 has this to say, yes, my soul finds rest in God. My hope comes from him. Truly, he is my rock and my salvation. He is my fortress. I will not be shaken. My salvation and my honor depend on God. He is my mighty rock, my refuge. Trust in him at all times, you people. Pour out your hearts to him, for God is our refuge. One thing God has spoken, two things I have heard. Power belongs to you, God, and with you, Lord, is unfailing love, and you reward everyone according to what they have done. Ladies, it's time to put our faith into action. The rest of Esther's story goes on to show how bold she was to go back and continue to ask the king for the safety of her people. I think I'd be tempted at this point to not ask the king for any more, considering he'd already given her people up to half his kingdom. And yet we see Esther taking on the persona of the persistent widow, where God tells this parable about how we should always pray and never give up. And God says at the end of that parable, and will not God bring about justice for his chosen people who cry out to him day and night? Will he keep on putting them off? I tell you, he will see that they get justice and quickly. However, when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on the earth? That's a sad thought. Because the only way he can find faith is if we are sharing our faith. For such a time as this, sisters, we need to be faithful in prayer and have a love and concern for those who do not know our God. God, please open our eyes that we may see what you see, love as you love, and act as you act. Amen. Now, Kim Evans, our senior women's ministry leader, will share practicals and reminders that will help us during this time of uncertainty. I love Kim's heart for God. She's a woman of deep faith and convictions. She's a loyal friend to many and an amazing example of great faith in these troubling times. Also, join us in 2 weeks because we will be hearing from Rachel Buckholtz. She has been interviewed and shown on CNN as one who has a message that is perfect for today for all of us to hear. It is a message when you think about God chose to put John and her 2 sons in Italy, Milan, for such a time as this. Her message is a message of hope. And I love what she said. She said to all the world at large, if you will, that she is choosing faith over fear, peace over panic, and kindness for everyone during this epidemic. Sisters, we will send out this link in the coming week. And now, Kim, over to you.
Ruby, thank you so much for the things that you shared. I miss seeing all of you. I'm glad to be seen, but I really miss seeing all of you. And in the words of Sarah Saltos, I miss the hugs. For such a time as this, it's such a great thing to think about and to pray about. And Walter and I am so privileged that we have so many such a time as this memories. But you know what's really great is we right now get to share for such a time as this memories together. All of us, we're all going to be telling these stories for the rest of our lives. There's not a person alive that's not going to be talking about this. But you know, in that shared story, we all have an individual story that we have. And in our individual story, I just want to ask you to really pray for God. Please, please, please use me. God, use me. There's an old camp theme, gum. God, use me. That's what we want in this. We don't want to hunker down in fear and do nothing. No, we want to be a bright light. We want God to use me. We want to see the stories and the miracles that he wants to do in our lives. You know, in Deuteronomy 7 and verse 9, it says, "Know therefore that the Lord your God is God. He is faithful God, keeping his covenant of love to 1,000 generations of those who love him and keep his commands." You know, God is faithful. He knows what's going on. He hasn't made a mistake. He hasn't forgotten us. I love the song, "It Is Well With My Soul." But you know why it's well with my soul? It's because I know the end of the story. I know I get to go be with God. I don't know if it's soon. I don't know if it's far. The fear that people are facing right now, their mortality, is huge. We have to help them. We have the answers. We know the end of the story. We know at the end we're going to heaven, so it's okay. You know, we need to pray to see God's miracles. It will increase our faith. There are miracles all around us, and God knows what's going on. These are huge trials. These are bigger trials than probably any of us have ever faced in our life. Ecclesiastes 1 and verse 10, it says, I found this right at the beginning of the virus. Is there anything of which one can say, look, this is something new? It was here already, long ago. It was here before our time. We feel like this is new. They even call it nouveau coronavirus. It's not new. This is nothing new. This has happened before, but it's so new to us. Deuteronomy 29, 2 through 6. Let's look at that. That's a fantastic verse. Verses 2 through 6, it says, Moses summoned the Israelites and said to them, your eyes have seen all that the Lord did in Egypt to Pharaoh, to all his officials, to all his land. With your own eyes you saw those great trials, those miraculous signs and great wonders. But to this day the Lord has not given you a mind that understands, or eyes that see, or ears that hear. During the 40 years that I led you through the desert, your clothes did not wear out, nor did the sandals on your feet. You ate no bread and drank no wine or other fermented drink. I did this so that you might know that I am the Lord your God. They had miracles all around them and they didn't even see it. They never thought about that their shoes they wore for 40 years and never wore out. Their clothes never wore out. Those are God's miracles. We have to beg God, please, 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 let me see your miracles. They're happening around us. Let's see them. God, use me in your miracles. That's what we need to say. You know, Walter and I both have angel stories in our life, both of us, and many people have said to us, wow, I really wish I had seen an angel. Maybe you have, and you didn't recognize him. But right now, there's miracles going on. Please let us see them and pray for God to use us. We need to pray like, God, okay, how can I help? How can I help? And then when it comes to us, we have to act on it. Well, you'll think of, oh God, how can you use me? And you'll think of someone to call. They need to hear from you. And then you'll tell yourself, or Satan will come along and say, no, you don't know what to say to them. You won't have the words. I don't know. And we'll try to talk ourselves out of it. Or we'll get distracted. No. Act on it. When you pray for God to use you and you pray to see miracles, then when something comes up, pray and then act on it. Mark 13, 10 and 11. I love this. And the gospel must first be preached to all nations. Whenever you are arrested and brought to trial, do not worry beforehand about what to say. Just say whatever is given you at the time, for it is not you speaking, it is the Holy Spirit. Isn't that awesome? God will give us the words of what to say and how to say it. When you think of someone, pick up the phone, call them. You may think of someone that you want to talk to about God. You've never talked to them about God. Be bold, be courageous. You can do it. Speak up. People in the church, let's when we think of each other, maybe I've never talked to them. It's okay. Let's reach out. Let's be there. You know, the vice president at the beginning of this, I loved it when he said, if you have faith, let your faith grow legs. I love that. We need to be a bright light and we need to make things happen. 1 Thessalonians 3, 2 through 3 says, we sent Timothy, who is our brother and God's fellow worker in spreading the gospel of Christ, to strengthen and encourage you in your faith, so that no one would be unsettled by these trials. You know quite well that we are destined for them. We're promised here that we're going to have trials, and now we're having them. But you know what? We have the strength to face them. And we as a church need to be a bright light. We as individual Christians and with faith need to be a bright light. But you know, here's a warning for you. We're a sisterhood. And the thing about that is sisters are messy and people are messy. And while we are all up in each other's lives and we're there and we're trying, but we're going to make mistakes. We've never done this before. And we've got to be honest. We've got to talk to each other. We have to love each other. We have to be gracious with each other. Galatians 4 and verse 14, it says, even though my illness was a trial to you, you did not treat me with contempt or scorn. And still you welcome me as if I were an angel of God or if I were Christ Jesus himself. You know, this illness is a trial to each other. We're going to find out that somebody has it or we think somebody gave it to somebody or this and that. We're all going to be touched by people that contract this illness, and we'll likely all be touched by loss. But we're going to have to say, it's okay. We're here. God's in control. Social distancing. What does it mean? You know, I have to tell you, this week, I want to hold up my daughter-in-law. She called me because I offended her after a conversation and how I behaved with social distancing. I had a completely clear conscience about what I was doing. She did not feel good about it. Do you know how hard it is to call your mother-in-law and tell her that I'm hurt by you and I'm offended? You know, with one another, it takes such great humility and vulnerability to be honest with each other. And Satan's going to be there just like God's there. And we're going to have to stand up and we're going to have to speak to each other. I respect her so much, and I'm very sorry for offending her. But you know what was even more funny? I was talking to my neighbor who's a young disciple, and I told her about the conversation. She's a very powerful businesswoman. And Kimberly said to me, wow, I could never call my mother-in-law. Can you imagine? Like, how awesome that is? That's who we are as disciples. The hard conversations and speaking up, we have to do it. And in this time, if it's on your heart, be vulnerable and speak up. Galatians 4 and verse 16. Just a few verses after that, it says, Paul says, have I now become your enemy by telling you the truth? You know, we're going to have to be courageous. We're going to have to respect the differences. What it means to one person. Is it okay to go for a walk? Is it not okay to go for a walk? Is it this? Is it that? However, we're going to do our best, but we're going to respect the differences and realize that our relationships with God is what's most important. You know, 2 Thessalonians 1:4, therefore, among God's churches, we boast about your perseverance, your faith in all the persecutions and trials you are enduring. You know, I'm so proud of the church. I'm so proud of how we've stepped up, how we help each other, things that are going on. We need to share the great news of how we're taking care of one another. We are a bright light. You know, we are going to face hard times and we're not going to do it perfectly. Anytime you tell people you have to stay home and you're not allowed to go out, there's going to be problems. We've had marriage bumps through all of this. We're breathing the same air all the time. It's hard. You know, last night, that in Washington, D.C., there were 400 911 calls for domestic violence. Domestic violence is up 30% from what it was 1 month ago. People are struggling. They're having a hard time. We're going to have a hard time too. We're not perfect. But, you know, we can do it. People are facing their mortality. We need to help them find their relationship with God and reach out. It is well with my soul. You know, we all make mistakes. 1 Thessalonians 3:3. So no one will be unsettled by my trials. You know quite well that we are destined for them. You know, we're facing trials and we're destined for them, and it's okay. We're going to face them and we're going to do okay. But you know, I do want to share a few practicals with you. A few practicals. One is vulnerability is key. We've got to be open. It's ups and downs. If it's going well, great. Let's be open. It's going well. If it's going terribly, great. Let's be open. It's going terribly. Pick up the phone. Let's talk about it. You're not meant to do this alone. We need to do it together. You know, working moms, my heart breaks for you right now. You are trying to juggle your preschoolers. You are trying to be the teacher and keep your kids in school, and your jobs are expecting from you what you've always given them. It's tough. I'm really sorry. My heart breaks. It's hard. Let's help each other, and it's okay, and be gracious with yourselves. If you're a mom, you know, everybody's need to eat all the time. No one goes out. No one leaves. The cooking, the cleaning, all breathing the same. It's tough. It's really hard. Wives, this isn't easy. You know, the COVID pressure. So many people have substituted pressure that they had before to all the things that they are pressuring themselves that need to get done during this time. It's not true. There are no expectations that every closet is cleaned and all the jobs are done and all the gardening is done. It's not true. Let yourself off the hook. Singles. This is a time where being single and being lonely is even harder. And I'm sorry. I pray that you can find comfort in God, but let's just be honest and let each other know how you're feeling. And just, I'll leave it at that. You know, some people are feeling that this is great. They have guilt about that, and that's really hard. We need to be vulnerable about that too. Maybe life is really great. Maybe working at home is great. Maybe all the extra time. Maybe you're not spending as much money because it's gas and food and all the things, and you're actually making money and not losing money. Let's be honest and say how you feel and what's going on. That's how we are in the game with each other. You know, do what you can, and that's all we can do. Introverts and extroverts, we're facing it differently. You know, we won't always get it right. Those of you that are living alone, it's hard. I'm sorry you're alone. Some are very, very, very scared. And we have to comfort each other. Financial crises are hard. I know personally with camp and what we're facing, I don't know how we're going to make it through, but many are out there trying to help us. It's all ups and downs. You know, the concept of I am going to grow through this. I am. I don't know how I'm going to grow, but I'm going to grow. You know, Hebrews 10 in verse 24, it says, let us consider how we can spur one another on towards love and good deeds. Let us not give up meeting together, as some are in the habit of doing. But let us encourage one another daily, and all the more as we see the day approaching. You know, let's really encourage each other. I want to show you a photo. This photo sits by the bathroom, and I see it every day. It's my dad, who passed in August. It was 1 year prior to that. And it always reminds me of heaven, that picture. I said to my mom, you know, I'm not planning to see him anytime soon, but if I do, it's okay. Let's keep each other strong, and let's take as many as possible to heaven. Ruby, thank you for your lesson on For Such a Time as This. Please, please pray, God use me. At this time, let's join our small groups for a time of discussion. You should have call-in. If you don't have a small group, I've put a conference line number up on the screen. You can call in and I will lead a discussion for all of us. Thank you so much. We love you. Hang in there, and we're going to make it through this.